morning, good afternoon, good evening, football fans. I'm Ryan Cato here with Hunter Thompson, Trevor McVeigh on Skype once again. We're back for week 3 of the NFL, and this is the Backups, the football podcast. Boys, how you feeling this week? Coming out of week 3, had some ups and downs. We'll talk about it, but I just want to hear how you feeling about right now.
I'm
For talking
heartbroken.
about our sports teams, I'm super down right now, for being real.
Yeah, I mean, I said that I was going to bring it up. I didn't know it was going to be 35 seconds into the
No, let's go to
fucking
news.
podcast.
Let's go to news.
Okay, we're going straight to news. We'll talk about it in a minute.
I don't want to
All
talk about
right,
it.
some news. Okay, let's go ahead and start talking about the Falcons. So the first player in all of the NFL to get COVID-19 is the rookie AJ Terrell for the Atlanta Falcons. So Falcons just making more history. Not good history as normal.
As normal.
I'm not sure. Is he out? I'm not sure if he's out 2 weeks or if he has to wait for
Yeah,
two
I think
negative tests.
I think he's out next week too.
Oh, that's great. With
There's
Denard,
like no didn't another corner get hurt on the Falcons?
Yep, hamstring injury for Denard. He's going on IR. Great.
I mean, the
it's okay.
defense is already
We just got a Jordan Miller back from a 4-game suspension.
sweet.
No, it hasn't been 4 games yet, so he's not back yet.
Oh, rip.
The secondary is already porous. And I do just want to hear your thoughts on Mitch Trubisky making himself the Atlanta Falcons daddy on Sunday.
Wait, hold on. Did you say Mitch Trubisky, as in former Chicago Bears starting quarterback Mitch Trubisky, the one who got benched in the Atlanta game? Mitch Trubisky
for who?
For Big Dick Nick Foles.
Super Bowl winning Nick Foles. I don't know how it's possible for a team to give up that many games, just like lay them down and give them to another team that many times. But the Falcons keep doing it. At least the Bears are 3-0. At least you're like, oh, we won or lost to a respectable team. They're 3-0. What are the Falcons right now, Trevor? Trevor, tell me what the Falcons are right now.
We are going back to the news.
No,
we
but
are
I mean,
0-3,
we don't have to talk about it anymore. The Falcons are 0-3 right now. Did just lose to the tied for first place in the NFC Chicago Bears. Same record actually as the Buffalo Bills, but we don't have to talk about that quite yet. I know also there were some other COVID reports for Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I think they had 2 players pop positive for COVID, and then one of their personnel did.
No. 3 players pop positive, 5 personnel.
Wait, so what is that? What is that? I didn't see much today on like Twitter or something, but like, do they forfeit?
So the game is still up in the air for Sunday against. I think they're playing Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think they're going to move it to Monday night to give them an extra day to.
But Tennessee's not allowed in their facilities until Saturday.
That's not good.
That's horrible.
So there's no way to practice, and I don't even know. I'd like to think the NFL is going to handle this well because they've been handling the whole COVID thing well so far.
I'd agree,
honestly, but I'm really curious to see how this situation plays out in Tennessee, and if this is going to be a long-term effect where we're going to see this game get pushed to like a week 18.
Yeah, Trevor, you said it was a possibility for a Monday night game.
Yeah, it's actually very, very likely it will be pushed to Monday, so there'll be 2 Monday night games.
Yeah.
Luckily, the game is in Tennessee, so that works out for them, so they don't have to travel as well. But as far as practice, it's just not ideal for them.
Yeah, and Tennessee's 3-0 right now, so maybe, barely. And we'll talk about that. I think.
Are they really 3-0?
They're 3-0. They beat the Vikings this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they beat the Jags last week, barely again. So that's a 1-point win this week, a 3-point win last week, and a 2-point win over the Broncos, who are also 0-3.
Oh my God.
In week number 1. So yeah, barely 0-3 or barely 3-0. I mean, but so for fantasy, anybody who drafted Derrick Henry, who has gotten off to a bit of a slow start, but did look good this last week.
Yes, he did.
Anybody who has Derrick Henry might want to consider looking at waivers.
Do y'all think the Bears are a worse 3-0 team or the Titans are a worse 3-0 team?
The Bears.
I want to see who the Bears have beaten, because they
beat Detroit, who's 1-2, and they beat the Giants, who were 0-3, I believe.
And Atlanta,
who's 0-3.
They beat the Falcons only by 4 points in a ravishing comeback by large member Nick Foles. Beat the Giants only by 4. Yeah, the Bears might be they beat the Lions by 4 too. Bears might be a worse 3-0 team than the Titans, but at least they have wins.
And if DeAndre Swift catches the ball in the end zone, Detroit wins that game in week 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they should be 1-2 most likely, but
yeah, or at least 2. But that's how football works, though. Sometimes, I mean, one catch,
Yeah, another thing to add. So a little bit of news. I think today, or maybe a little bit of yesterday, Earl Thomas has been linked to Houston. He was supposed to come in for a tryout, and but with the whole COVID thing, and then I guess just the two sides didn't see eye to eye, they canceled the tryout. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and y'all actually talked about in the quarterbacks episode, right, that Earl Thomas would probably be looking at places in Texas. Was that right? Because isn't he from there?
Yeah, he's from Texas.
Yeah, so it makes sense. I saw. I think it'd be a good idea for Dallas to take a look at him too, but it was just never. I guess it never linked up.
I just worry about his locker room presence right now. I just don't know how good of a teammate he is. Because his last team, he had a fist fight with another safety. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like the whole thing with the Ravens are a team where you just don't get cut for a simple thing like fighting. Like the Ravens are known for having a good locker room and a really passionate locker room. So even if it was just something as simple as, oh, you ran the wrong coverage assignment during practice, and oh, words were said and a fight started. Like, a player of Earl Thomas's caliber, combined with the fact the Ravens are just a very passionate team in the locker room, like, you don't cut him for that.
Yeah, there's got to be some other issues.
There has to be more to it than that, and that could be what ended up happening with Houston and why that did not end up panning out.
Yeah, I mean that seems likely. We'll have to see if he gets signed during the season at some point. Somebody who needs secondary help. Looking at you, Atlanta, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Getting into the week, though, I do want to hear about some games of the week. There was plenty of good games. I got to watch them all thanks to NFL Game Pass. And shout outs to Hunter for purchasing NFL Game Pass. So we're able to see any games we want to see in a quick, condensed 45-minute little window. That's not an ad. I just love Game Pass.
I hope they don't hear that, and I hope they don't cancel my Game Pass. Anyway.
Wait, I didn't watch it on Hunter's Game Pass. I have my own login. Anyways, Game of the Week, Hunter, I do want to hear about it.
Okay, so anyway, Game of the Week for me, it had to have been the Monday night game, Kansas City versus Baltimore. Everybody was predicting these two teams to be competing for the AFC yet again. And like Lamar Jackson said, Kansas City is Baltimore's kryptonite. As good as Baltimore has looked in every other game this season, and every game last season too, they just forget how to play football when they play against Kansas City. Pat Mahomes stepped out there and was Lamar Jackson's daddy. We saw Lamar Jackson go under 100 yards passing yesterday. We saw Mahomes with just looking like a god out there. 3 touchdown passes in the first half. The touchdown pass to the big man, touchdown pass to a fullback. He makes it look easy, and the things that he does on the field are unmatched by most players. If anybody thinks Kansas City is not an immediate favorite for the Super Bowl, especially after yesterday, they're wrong.
Yeah, I tend to agree. the Chiefs defense looks so good. Like you said, less than 100 yards passing for Lamar Jackson, 83 rushing yards. So still under 100 yards rushing as well. And his only touchdown pass was to backup tight end Nick Boyle. So not a single receiver on the Baltimore Ravens had more than 40 yards. The top receiver was J.K. Dobbins at 38 yards. So they didn't look good, and the defense, who has been solid, of course you can't blame them for going up against Kansas City, but the defense did not look good against Pat Mahomes, who looked perfect, who looked like the best quarterback ever. He looked so good.
Yeah, Lamar, especially the first half, just none of the wide receivers or tight ends were getting open. And granted, he had a bunch of drops that game too, which didn't help. But he had nobody to throw to. They had one touchdown on offense, passing Nick Boyle, like you mentioned, and then the other 7 points came from a kick return, I believe. Yeah, and then they had a couple other field goals, but that's it. I mean, one of the best offenses in the NFL was held to that. Yeah. And then you have Patty Mahomes. The closest I've ever seen to Patrick Mahomes is prime Aaron Rodgers, and Patty Mahomes looks better than him, in my opinion. Like his
name's Patrick. His mom tweeted about it, all angry and stuff last night.
Well, she can cry about it. I don't care. She's a millionaire because of her son now. I don't give a shit. He's got touch. He's got the deep ball. He's the playmaker. Like, he is so far ahead of everybody in the league.
I think so,
and that's not an exaggeration at this point, that he is so good, and he's only in his, third season as a starter?
Yeah, he's this is ridiculous. 23, right? Or 24?
Yeah.
I saw a question earlier, and I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's true, but I think it's interesting. Do you think Pat Mahomes is better at football at this age than LeBron James was at basketball at this age?
Ooh, wow.
Because I think he's more dominant. I think he's more dominant. I'll say
because LeBron didn't go to the finals until a few seasons.
Yeah, but LeBron also had nobody around him ever when he was his first go around in Cleveland.
KC doesn't have a defense either. It's all Patty Mahomes.
You mean the defense that held Lamar last night?
KC don't have a defense. KC has made something out of nothing, though. I mean, dude, if you look at the offense that is even around Pat Mahomes, I mean, his star receiver is a fifth rounder. You know?
Yeah.
It's not like they put in, these top receivers, I mean, their running back was the first running back selected in this draft, but
it's the coaching.
That's what I'm saying. But you have to build a scheme around the quarterback, and I think that they've done that. I mean, they placed all of Pat Mahomes' strengths.
Yeah.
The point that I would make is his first season as a starter, he went to AFC Championship game, and if it wasn't for, I think, Dee Ford being offsides on one play, they win that game, and he goes to the Super Bowl. And that Super Bowl is one of the worst Super Bowls I've ever seen, because I think that was the Pats and Rams year that ended 13-3.
That was an awful
which
year.
They would have destroyed the Rams that game.
Yeah.
So he would have had probably 2 Super Bowls if it hadn't been for Dee Ford on that one play.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if they would have destroyed the Rams in that Super Bowl.
I disagree.
I think it would have been a better game for sure. But the thing that was holding the Rams back was the fact Belichick is such a good defensive mind. Andy Reid is not that. We're sitting here knocking the KC defense. Would they have been able to stop that high-powered Sean McVay offense that year?
That's fair. And that's fair. And that the Rams defense that year was absolutely insane. That was the strongest Rams defense. And I mean, we're seeing flashes of that, I think, even this year. I'm hoping the Rams are starting to look a little bit better, and we can talk about that because I think my game of the week this week is going to have to be Buffalo LA, Bills Rams. Hell of a game. Trevor was texting us talking shit, talking about the Bills blowing a 28-3 lead, But what he didn't know is we have MVP candidate Josh Allen, uh, absolutely tearing up the field. He looked amazing. The defense, though, the Bills' defense to start this year has not looked like it did the past couple years. I mean, they gave up 28 points to the Dolphins last week. Of course, the Fitzmagic was there, but you just can't give up 300 yards passing with the secondary that you have, I think. And so, hell of a game this week, though. Two great teams, and I'm really looking forward to watching them both the rest of the season. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I am shocked at how well Josh Allen's playing right now. He had 5 total touchdowns with an interception. If the season ended today, it would be hard for me not to vote for him for MVP. Just for how he's carrying that team.
Yeah.
The running game was still pretty good, but he threw 4 TDs, and another reason to compare him to the 28-3 team in Atlanta was Matt Ryan won the MVP that year that he blew that lead. So maybe there is some
maybe something like that.
Maybe there's something to that. But as far as the other side of the ball, the Rams, another week where they had a slow start, but they finished strong and they look really good. So I am really encouraged by what the Rams are doing right now. Jared Goff is playing well. Not great, but he's playing well, and I would not want to play them in any week right now.
Yeah. I don't know. That game was really fun to watch, like, for me, just because, like, it's so interesting to see both teams finally figuring out what to do to play to their quarterback's strengths. Because last year we saw with the Rams, they were trying to get Goff to do too much and be too much of a game changer. And that's not Goff. Like, Goff is a good quarterback, but he's not an elite quarterback.
And that O-line was bad last year.
Oh, yeah, O-line was horrible last year. But we're really seeing it this year. Sean McVay using misdirections, play action stuff, getting Goff out of the pocket, and just getting him moving to counteract the poor offensive line play and just to play to his strengths. And it's really cool to see Goff make that comeback and to see McVay looking like the good offensive mind that everybody knows that he is. And then for Buffalo, I forgot who it was, but I was listening to someone the other day talking about how they had Stephon Diggs on their radar for 2 seasons. They almost pulled the trigger for him last October, like when Mohamed Sanu and Emmanuel Sanders and stuff, when all that was going on. But they backed out of it then, and then they ended up pulling the trade for him then, and it's incredible that he's been on their radar so long. And one of the things that they love that he brings to the table is the swagger and the confidence that he adds to the locker room. And Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of that this year out of Josh Allen. He's playing at a much more confident level. He's hitting throws that there's no way he would have hit last season. Not due to lack of talent, but just he didn't have the confidence to make those throws. So it's really cool to see.
Nor the talent around him.
Exactly, nor the talent around him. And it's just really cool to see both of those quarterbacks who we've seen get criticized in the public eye start to bounce back and have good seasons. That's really taking them to the next level and carrying their teams to those next level.
100%. 100%. Also, something to look out for. Jared Goff is actually QB number 9 in ESPN fantasy leagues right now, and has a easy game against the New York Giants, possibly the worst team in football, next week. So that might be something to look out for if you're having quarterback troubles. He's available in a lot of leagues right now on ESPN. So not a very highly drafted player, but I think he could be a good streamer for this week. That is also a good segue into something I wanted to ask about. We were kind of talking about it before the call, but who do you think the worst teams in football are right now? Because I did mention, I think that 2 of the worst teams in football might be in New York. The Jets and the Giants have both looked absolutely horrendous to start the year. I mean, absolutely terrible. The Jets put up 7 points on the Colts last week. So what do you guys think?
I think the team for me that's the worst has got to be the Jets. Sam Darnold's playing horribly. Him and Adam Gase are just not on the same page. He has no weapons there. Like his wide receivers might as well be the three of us out there.
Honestly.
Mekhi Becton's played really well for them, but he's also, I think, injured coming into this next week, so he could be out. The defense is giving up yards like they're paid to give up yards, not like they're paid to stop people. He threw 2 pick sixes last week. I think he threw 3 more interceptions this week. It's just not there with Sam Darnold right now. The Giants aren't much better, but my team for the worst in the league right now is by far the Jets.
Yeah, we've been saying this pretty much since the draft and since free agency happened. The Jets are the most talent-devoid roster in the NFL. And it also doesn't help that they're one of the worst coached rosters in the NFL.
Besides Atlanta.
Yeah, besides Atlanta, I think Atlanta is the worst coached roster in the NFL. But
No
I also
argument from me.
I weirdly do think Atlanta has one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. But a team that I think we're weirdly leaving out of this discussion is the 0-3 Minnesota Vikings.
Ooh, Cousins
Yeah,
has
the
been
Vikings have looked bad. The
Yeah,
Vikings
I
have
mean,
looked
like
bad.
obviously Jets are by far the worst. And I think the second and third comes down to Giants Vikings. Like when you're like, and you can toss and turn either of those, however you want to. But the Vikings have looked bad. Cousins has looked horrid this season. The Mike Zimmer defense that everybody's known and loved has been non-existent. The secondary is horrid. Like it's just it's a terrible, terrible season for a roster that's some predicted to win the NFC North. Do we think do y'all think that's a coaching thing or just a roster thing or like combination?
Honestly, dude, I couldn't tell you because it's kind of confusing to me. Like to see. I mean, I think they didn't lose too much in the off season. I think we graded their draft pretty like middle of the road. I wasn't too upset at their draft. Filled some holes that they were looking at with the departure of Stephon Diggs and then trying to fill in holes in that secondary, I believe. But yeah, they've just looked absolutely awful, and Kirk Cousins has not helped that, I don't think. So I don't know what that is, but they need to figure that out. I don't know if it's coaching wise or just what, but
yeah, Kirk Cousins, he put up 34 week 1 against Green Bay, which is pretty impressive. But I don't think that game was close. It's probably mostly garbage time. Then they get absolutely blown out by the Colts. It was like 34-11, something like that.
it wasn't
And then
close.
a little bit of a bounce back this week as far as TDs. He had 3 TDs this week, but he threw 2 interceptions. And a really close game against the Titans, but still not getting there. I think it really just comes down to Kirk. When he's playing well and not turning the ball over, they're a pretty decent team. But when he is, they're piss poor. Their secondary hasn't been good. I think it's kind of a younger guys too, so not the best scenario there. Overall, I just don't see much hope for them this season as far as playoffs and further.
The only other 0-3 team we haven't really hit on in this conversation would be the Broncos. But that looks like mostly injuries to me.
Right.
So that's why I'm not too
There's
keen
also
on
the
including them.
0-3 Texans.
0-3 Texans. There you go. That is the last team because we tackled the Falcons too. Yeah. I mean the Texans have looked bad too, but I think we kind of knew that though. I at least like it like felt like the Texans weren't going to get too much done considering their awful managing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think they have maybe the hardest 3-game stretch to start a season I've ever seen. They started out with Kansas City, then Baltimore, and then at Pittsburgh. Like that, I would not sign up for that at all. I wouldn't even want that on the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think could handle it.
Right.
But Houston, they don't really have weapons. I mean, Watson's safety net was D-Hop. D-Hop's now in Arizona, and he's balling out in Arizona.
Yes, he is.
The O-line has been really shaky. Defense hasn't been great. So overall, they need a GM, probably biggest thing first, and then Really need to get him some weapons.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is the Jets have put up 37 points total to start the season, compared to like an average of like 60 or 70 across the board.
I think I saw Green Bay has scored no less than 37 this year, or
They-
2 games where they scored
Yeah,
37.
the Green Bay Packers have scored 122 points this season. So they are the highest scoring team in the league. They are the highest scoring team in the league, but I don't think that there's a team that has less points against than the Jets have for. So that's pretty ridiculous. Jets have been absolutely awful to start the season. I do want to hear about your game of the week though, Trevor. Because we kind of got distracted there, went on a little tangent.
Just to throw one more thing in there, Minnesota does play Houston this week, and it's in Houston, so it's the battle of the 0-3 teams.
One less 0-3.
Yep. So my game of the week is going to be Sunday Night Football, Green Bay at New Orleans.
Yeah.
And Green Bay is the real deal this year. Like them and Seattle, I think have looked the best out of all the NFC teams this year. Aaron Rodgers without his star wide receiver, Devontae Adams being hurt. Him and Alan Lazard had a freaking connection, and they torched New Orleans on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Drew Brees, the Saints need to take every penny that they're paying Taysom Hill and just give it to Alvin Kamara because that's their entire offense. The man is popping off, and it's.
Yeah.
I mean, if he plays like this for the rest of the season, he could be an MVP candidate because this man is damn good. Let's see. Drew Brees, I think, averaged 4.6 yards downfield again as far as targets, and that's not going to cut it. He still threw for 3 TDs, but one of them was a 52-yard beast mode TD from Alvin Kamara, and then one to Sanders, I think, late in the game. But overall, I would be really nervous as a New Orleans fan as far as longevity this season. I mean, luckily their division has been kind of weak. Atlanta looks bad. Carolina doesn't look good. Tampa Bay is starting to trend upward, so they're a threat, but I would be very nervous for them. The Chicago Bears are a joke, so I think Green Bay should just walk over that division. So easy NFC North title for Aaron Rodgers again. But overall, the game was really fun to watch as far as Matt LaFleur, former Falcons personnel member. That was fun to watch him destroy other teams while our offense is struggling. Overall, good game.
I didn't like I haven't liked what I saw from the Saints at all this season. I didn't even like it week 1. The only thing I liked about that was getting to watch them beat down on Tom Brady. Because I hate that man, but you're right that Alvin Kamara is that entire offense. I mean, the man had 13 receptions. He's a running back. He had 13 receptions.
He's currently 5th in the league in receiving yards.
13 receptions, 139 yards and 2 touchdowns, on top of 58 rushing yards. I mean, it's absurd. And it's not just the thing is they're not easy yards because his yards after catch are ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
He's catching screen passes and like outs,
Mm-hmm.
and he's making people miss. He's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely insane. Whoever was picking like 4th or 5th in their fantasy draft is patting themselves on the back. Loving Lady Luck right now for giving Alvin Kamara because that shit is insane. He has been crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Question. Well, not really a question. It's more of a statement. I think the Saints need to play Jameis Winston.
I disagree.
I'm telling, like, as we saw with Peyton, we're seeing it right now again with Drew Brees. You can't keep running a quarterback that can't pass it more than 5 yards down the field and expect to win in today's NFL. Even Brady is throwing it downfield.
Jameis Winston's not even QB2 for them, though. He's their third stringer.
That's the problem. He's the best QB in their QB room. And he's behind a gimmick in Taysom Hill. And he's behind
old
Brees. I'm sorry. It's super old Drew Brees. Exactly.
Old, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I do want to state, though, that defense is not doing him any favors. They gave up 34 points to the Raiders.
Yes,
Ooh.
but at the same time, like, do you know how easy
34
it is?
points.
Like
Like
I
that.
get that. I get that. But do you know how easy it probably is to scheme against Drew Brees, especially as we're getting more
That's
and more
fair.
film from him?
Sure,
we're-
but I mean, he put up 30. He put up 30 points against the Packers. They
Are the
gave
Packers
up 30.
known for their defense though?
No, but I'm saying 30
It's been
points is
better.
30 points is 30 points, and you're going to give up 37. You're going to put up 24 against the Raiders, which isn't high. 24 is not good, but you're going to give up 34. So it's like, I mean, like the defense does have to do him some favors there. Mike Thomas is gone, but Drew Brees isn't looking good. I'm not going to defend that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but we knew going into the season though that this Saints defense is not that good. We knew that they were average at best, and everyone was still expecting them to win the NFC
I'm
based on
saying,
Drew Brees' arm.
do you think
His
do you
arm
think
isn't
that,
there, so you have to change it up if you want to try to win.
But do you think that the defense is going to do Jameis Winston any favors? Absolutely not.
No,
And,
but
and
the thing
Jameis
is-
Winston will just throw more picks.
Not necessarily. I mean, yes, but at the same time, we're going to see a completely different aspect. We're going to see more big plays. We're going to stop seeing the 3 and outs. We're going to see like Jameis bring a different element that the Saints don't have.
I hope so. I really do. I hope so. I don't know. I'd give it one more week. I think I'm trying to remember. I think the Saints have the Lions next week. So if it looks bad against the Lions, I say pull the trigger on Jameis. I wouldn't be mad at it because they have the Chargers Monday Night Football Week 5, and that's a good defense.
Mhm.
So
I think I'd give Taysom the start before Jameis, though.
well, I mean, I
What?
think it needs to be
What?
switched up. They love Taysom in New Orleans. Apparently,
He knows the offense.
He-
Sean
he-
Payton loves him.
You act like Jameis has not learned NFL offenses before.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
but Taysom's been in that system for years.
But Taysom doesn't throw. He's a gimmick.
Well,
They're
we're
paying
about to
that-
find
You
out.
haven't
We're
seen
gonna
him.
we're gonna find out. We're sure as hell gonna find out because they love Taysom Hill. They've been, excuse my language, they've been sucking Taysom Hill's dick for so long. Like they
You
must
see that
have
contract? Did you see that contract they gave him?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, compared to Jameis Winston's contract, who threw for like 5,000 yards last year. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'd be interested to see, but I say give it one more week. They have the Lions. If he can't do something against the Lions D, which has been bad,
Their
Then-
secondary's horrible.
I mean, it's terrible. It's it's just I feel so bad for Detroit sometimes, but if they can't do that, then they're gonna have to switch it up against the Chargers for Week 5. Also, I do want to mention, the NFC East is like obviously the runaway worst conference in football, like by far. The best 2 teams are 1 and 2. But the NFC South is looking pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
The Bucks have 2 wins, but one of them was against the Panthers, and the other one was against the 0-3 Broncos. They
Yeah.
lost to the Saints, who are 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So
Pretty weak.
and so it's not looking good for the NFC South so far. I
Yeah.
think that's fascinating.
I'm gonna be honest. That division, like both of those divisions, are still so wide open.
Yeah,
Like-
absolutely.
Like I said, was it last week that I said? No, week 1. After week 1, when I said Washington has an outside chance to win that division, they still do have an outside
They
chance
could.
to win it.
Because
Exactly.
the Cowboys are 1 and 2.
Exactly. And the thing is, as weird as it sounds, we could see Atlanta come back and win the division. I know Trevor doesn't want to see that, but
No.
we could. Like,
I think at this point Atlanta needs to lose out. Just lose
I
out.
think it's going to be Dallas and New Orleans win their divisions, personally.
it's
Dallas,
gonna be Dallas and Tampa.
Dallas. I don't know. Dallas can do it. I think Dallas is 1 and 2, but they have had the Rams and the Seahawks, but they barely won that Falcons game. They should be 0 and 3.
Yeah,
Yep.
they should be 0-3.
They should be 0 and 3.
And again, Atlanta should be 2-1 right now.
Yeah, I mean, really, yeah. They should at least be 1 and 2, at the very least.
Yeah.
Should be 1 and 2. They should have won that Cowboys game. But I'd be interested to see as the Cowboys start playing inside their division, what that's going to look like, because it looks like week 5, 7, and 8 are all division games. But they do have they have a tougher schedule just because they won that division. You know, they still have the Ravens, they still have the 49ers. So it's going to be an interesting that's going to be an interesting watch in the NFC East as well as the NFC South. I do want to get out into surprises of the week coming up next, but we're going to have a quick little break before we get back into it, and we will see you in just a moment.
Hello, football fans. Ryan Cato here, coming at you live from no longer my childhood bedroom, back at my house. We are corona free, and I just wanted to highlight our YouTube channel, the Backups Cast. We put all of these videos up. We record everything on Skype, so you can see my beautiful face every single week when we do our week recap, as well as maybe some bonus content coming in the future. Also wanted to shout out the Backups Cast on Twitter, as well as ISN Podcast Network. Shout outs to Brian Lamb for the support. Will be hosted on his site for this coming season, and you can also find us on Podbean and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, etc. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get back into the action.
Back into it. Welcome back, football fans. We're the Backups, a football podcast. Thank you for continuing to tune in. I do want to get right back into it because we just talked about our games of the week. I want to hear surprises of the week from all the boys, starting with you, Hunter. Tell me your surprise of the week for week 3.
Yeah, my surprise of the week, honestly, is that Dan Quinn and Adam Gase have not been let go of their positions yet. I mean, yes, it's a bit of a stretch to fire a coach after week 3, but these are two of the biggest names coming into the season that were on the hot seat. The two of them and Matt Patricia were the 3 biggest names on the hot seat. And the Falcons are looking horrible. I mean, you're blowing giant leads back-to-back weeks and then get blown out by the Seahawks week 1. Not a good way to start the season. And then, as we were saying with the Jets, you only scored 37 points all season. Adam Gase is supposed to be an offensive guru. Peyton Manning has given him so much credit over the years for being a great offensive mind, and you're sitting here running your potentially franchise quarterback into the dirt. Did y'all see that interview with Sam Darnold?
Yeah, he looked defeated.
He looked traumatized.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, that alone, if I'm a GM, I don't even care if I'm the one that drafted Sam Darnold or not. That alone, at this point in time, would be like, okay, cool, we need to probably let him go.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree. It's what's interesting to me. We talked about the Jets earlier, so I don't feel like I have to hit on that much more, but been absolutely horrendous to start the season. And we talked about point differentials actually for the different teams. We didn't talk about the Falcons, who've scored 90 points to start the season, but given up 108. And what I don't understand is how you can hire a defensive head coach and continue to give up that many points. I think that's entirely unacceptable in Atlanta because that offense, like you said, is one of the more talented offenses in the NFL. I mean, slower start week 1, but you were playing the Seahawks, put up 39 against Dallas and still lost. I mean, and you had a great game last week against the Bears and still lost. I can't accept that for much longer from Atlanta, and I wouldn't be surprised to see. We've talked about Dan Quinn losing his job already previous episodes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's soon. And it's not going to get easier next week. I'm sorry to tell you. Because you have Green Bay in prime time in Green Bay.
Oh yeah, with Devontae Adams probably
with Devontae Adams, Monday Night Football against one of the best teams in the league.
My thoughts. So the Jets job, Adam Gase was already a bad coach last year. I mean, that roster isn't great. There's not much to work with, for being honest. But still, to come out looking this bad is just inexcusable. Like, they have looked horrible. Like I've mentioned earlier in the podcast, they look like the worst team in the league by far. And I don't know if like him and Peyton Manning was like pre-cocaine Adam Gase. Like I have no idea. I'm not saying he's on cocaine, but like that one interview, like come on.
His hiring interview.
Yeah. But he has really struggled as a head coach. And then Dan Quinn, those Seattle years were fantastic as a coordinator. I think he is just made to be a coordinator. I don't think head coaching is the right move for him right now. We have two defensive minds between him and Raheem Morris, and our defense. The tackling's bad. The knowing what your job is on every play is bad. Then you got the freaking onside kick. One of the last plays against Dallas, poorly coached. Like this was, I would argue, a top 10 roster, maybe even higher on that list in the NFL. And they are bottom 3 coach in the league right now. And I've been adamant about this. If we go 13-0 the next 13 games, I still want the roster, not the roster. I still want the personnel and coaches, everything just gutted. Like it is inexcusable, unacceptable. The Falcons are just horrible.
I mean, there's two teams in the NFL that have given up more than 100 points right now, and one of them is the Vikings, who are 0-3, and one of them is the Falcons.
Yep.
And that's it. And that's the extent of it.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think Dan Quinn is a super, super bad head coach. I think he's a very average, middle of the road head coach. I think his style is like the whole motivation, brotherhood style, right? I think he lost all momentum with that after the Super Bowl defeat. Do I think Dan Quinn could go somewhere with a young roster, like for instance a Cincinnati or a Jets, or somewhere with a very young core, and make his shtick work there? Yes, I do. But the difference between him and Adam Gase, I don't think Adam Gase gets a job after this. I don't think he has any interviews after this. I think Dan Quinn will still get interviews, but I don't think Adam Gase will get any more interviews after this job.
I think I tend to agree. I think we've seen Dan Quinn be successful. We know that Dan Quinn can be successful. I don't think Adam Gase can be successful. I really don't. In nothing more than a coordinator job. If not just a strategist job, even like a playbook making job. I mean, he's been absolutely horrendous. I think that it'd be better sooner than later that he's gone. Trevor, I'd love to hear about your surprise of the week for week 3.
It wasn't a huge surprise for me because I've been kind of down on this team. But the good old Jacksonville Jaguars, their hype train kind of got hit with just a giant cinder block or something. I don't know. The Dolphins went into Jacksonville on Thursday Night Football and absolutely owned that team. They won 31-13. Fitzmagic had his best game of the season, had 2 TDs. Minshew had a rough game. He was 30 of 42 for 275 yards with 1 interception, which isn't horrible, but isn't great. One highlight, though, is James Robinson at UDFA. I'm not sure what school he's from, but
he's from Illinois State.
That's crazy because he looks fantastic on the football field. That's the only bright spot from Jacksonville this week. And I was still a little surprised with how well Minshew was playing, that they got hit so hard by Miami. But still, I think it's more of Minshew coming back down to earth than kind of a letdown game, in my opinion.
Yeah, a couple notes on that game. Ryan Fitzpatrick, that shit pisses me off, dude. I swear it does because all I want is to see number 1 just jogging out on the field.
Oh, you're telling me, bro.
I'm so sick of Ryan Fitzpatrick bringing his lumberjack ass out on the field because he's garbage. But then the minute that I start saying that, he's suddenly 18 for 20 and 2 touchdowns. And since when can Ryan Fitzpatrick do that? I don't know. But all I want is to see Tua Tagovailoa. Also,
dude, it's the reverse Minshew. The minute I start saying Minshew's good,
he's garbage.
Bro, he's garbage again. So
my favorite stat is Fitzpatrick has beat the Jaguars with 7 different teams.
That's absolutely absurd. That's absurd. That's so ridiculous. Uh, I do want to note though, I don't know. I don't remember what the exact words were, Trevor, but I think it was who could have seen it coming with James Robinson. And I just want to say that the person who saw it coming was Ryan Cato. I talked about James Robinson in our Gems day 2, day 3 guys episode. You can go back and listen to that. James Robinson had 15 touchdowns in 12 games at Illinois State last season. An absolute monster in the FCS. Should have been playing higher. And when he went undrafted, that hurt my soul very much. So I'm glad to see him starting in Jacksonville and doing very well. He had 46 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, but also 6 receptions for 83 yards. So he's looked amazing.
Leonard Fournette, who?
Yeah, exactly. I don't even remember. You mean the backup for the Buccaneers? Like I don't even remember who that is. So I do want to talk about though. My surprise for the week continues to be, and we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. I think I've brought it up, but how well Joe Burrow can play and still not win a game. It is amazing to me.
Not lose.
Yeah, he didn't lose. He didn't lose, but he is 0-2-1. Tied with the Eagles this last week, 23-23, but he was 31 for 44, 312 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
And got sacked 8 times.
Got sacked 8 times, had no support from his rushing game. Joe Mixon only 49 yards on 17 touches. And still managed to like played so well and still managed to not win that game. Also connected with Tyler Boyd 10 times for 125 yards. I mean, we talked, we knew this, obviously. It's not like, it's no surprise that Joe Burrow is, quote, the real deal, right? We saw him play last season, but I think it's really impressive to me how he can be playing on a team so bad and still look so good. I'm still impressed by it every single week so far.
I think the skill players they have up in Cincinnati are actually really good.
Oh, yeah.
And could be one of the best skill player units in the NFL. The thing is that offensive line is just so bad. And if this team doesn't take Penny Sewell with their first round pick,
it has to be.
You're about to pull an Andrew Luck and you're about to kill Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Yeah, it really has to be. I mean, there's an article that I was reading earlier. I'm trying to pull it up right now, but Joe Burrow and Tyler Boyd, like I talked about, are a connection. And Tyler Boyd said in his post-game interview, they have to start protecting Joe. Bobby Hart, who's on that offensive line, has allowed 2 more pressures, which is 15 total, than anyone else in all of football. So, I mean, yeah, sacked 8 times, set out for a play after taking a shot in the middle of the game. I mean, it's how can you get sacked 14 times in 3 games and not be shook?
Yeah, I mean, rewind back to week 1, Carson Wentz, he gets sacked 8 times. I didn't give him excuses for why they lost to Washington. I mean, he had no protection. He lost. Well, Joe Burrow got sacked 8 times, but he was in that game and took that game to overtime and threw for 312 yards. I mean, granted, he's got better skill positions, so I'll give him that. But he's also a freaking rookie behind that offensive line. And I outplayed Carson Wentz in Philly. I mean, Carson Wentz, like we talked about last week, I vouched for the guy, but he's looked like dog shit this year.
Yeah, I mean, he has looked bad. And Joe Burrow, not only a rookie, but really a 1-year production guy.
Yep.
In college. Obviously, one of the best years of production ever in college football.
Arguably the best year of production in college football.
But still 1-year production in college football. And he's still, he's looking poised. He's looking more poised than half the quarterbacks in the NFL, I think. So it's amazing to me how that can happen. And that was my big surprise of the week for sure. I'm hoping to see the Bengals succeed. I really do want them to succeed, but they do have a tough division and some tough games coming up. Let's get to backups of the week, though. I know, Hunter, you are posting a poll on our Twitter, in which you can follow us at the Backups Cast. very soon on backup of the week, and you guys can vote on which backup that we choose is your backup of the week. But let's start with Trevor this time. Trevor, I do want to hear your backup of the week.
My backup of the week for me has got to be Nick Mullins from the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy G was out, I think, with an ankle injury, I believe.
Yeah, high ankle sprain.
I believe
like
so.
that.
So Nick gets to start against the really formidable New York Giants in New York. He goes 25 of 36 for 340 yards with a TD. I mean, Kyle Shanahan could take one of the three of us and just make them a productive QB at the NFL level, it feels like. Not saying that Nick Mullins is that bad. Nick Mullins is very solid, accurate QB who will make the throws that you need him to make. But he went into New York, first start in a while, and threw for over 300 yards and with a touchdown and easily beat the Giants. So really nice performance from Nick this week.
Yeah, he looked great, 343 yards. Did get some touchdown help from the rushing game too. And I do want to highlight somebody for anybody that plays fantasy. We obviously all three play fantasy in a couple of leagues. But I do want to highlight Jeff Wilson Jr. I talked about him last week. Jerick McKinnon obviously got the bulk of the work and the snaps this last week, but Jeff Wilson still had 12 carries and a touchdown, as well as 3 receptions, 54 yards, and another touchdown. So a good waiver wire ad this week if you're looking at some deeper leagues, looking for some flex plays, something like that. I feel like Jeff Wilson is a place to look. Hunter, I would love to hear about your backup of the week, brother.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk about my backup of the week real quick in just a second. All I'm saying is
please.
Nick Mullins is more efficient than Jimmy Garoppolo. We give Kyle Shanahan the credit for being a QB whisperer, but Homeboy has never been a QB whisperer in any of his years. He's always been focusing on the running game, and every team he's went to has had an established running game. So the fact we're seeing Nick Mullins, a backup, throw for 300 and whatever yards is incredible. And obviously Shanahan deserves some of the praise, but to sit here and say Shanahan is a QB mastermind who can make any quarterback good, are we saying Jimmy Garoppolo is good?
I think Jimmy Garoppolo is average.
That's where I had him in my rankings.
But I think he sure looks pretty good. I mean, he doesn't look bad. It's the offensive schemes though. I mean, we've seen
for sure.
The analytics on motion and how routes affect all of that, and the West Coast style that they're putting together. I mean, it's Shanahan partly
obviously,
for sure.
But all I'm saying is I think Nick Mullins might be a more effective quarterback for them than Jimmy Garoppolo.
And it's fascinating to even to say that as backup quarterback comes in and looks excellent. Of course, against, like we talked about, one of the worst teams in the league. But we're gonna see next week. Well, maybe not. We've got the Eagles next week, so maybe we'll see. If Nick Mullins continues.
I'm not going to say there's a huge difference between Garoppolo and Mullins, but I do think there is a slight difference in Mullins being the better of the two. But I don't think realistically there's a big difference with either one you roll out. But anyway,
the difference is the paycheck each week.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly. Anyway, on to my backup of the week. I'm going with Nick Giant Body Part Foles.
His leg?
Sure, yeah, his third leg, yeah. But we saw Nick Foles come in against Atlanta, which, granted, the Atlanta defense is so formidable. Woo. But we saw him throw an interception, him just shake it off right off the bat, and then lead the Bears to a 16-point comeback to beat the Falcons. Pretty much all in the fourth quarter. And that's not really saying a ton, but the fact he won the starting job after that performance is what makes him my backup of the week. Because honestly, Mitch Trubisky is not very good, but he has not looked terrible this season. But the fact Foles stepped in and played so confidently and played so efficiently to steal the starting job in a quarter of play, that's awesome and great for Foles.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Foles has always just been a confusing man for me. Uh, Super Bowl winner, but then ends up being a backup for the Bears behind one of the quarterbacks that we've talked about being one of the lowest tier quarterbacks in football. Um, but yeah, looked absolutely great. 188 yards and 3 touchdowns uh, in that fourth quarter. So I commend Nick Foles for his performance this week, and I'm interested to see what he does next week against the Colts defense, who's looked very good to start the season.
Yeah, Foles at 3 TDs could have easily been 4 TDs. There's a really controversial interception in the end zone between Denard and Robinson, I believe. And I think after replay, it should have been called a TD, but they called it interception, so Falcons got the ball back. But I think that should have been a TD, so that should have been 4 for him. Trubisky, he didn't look horrible, but he also did not look good in any way, shape, or form in the first half. Atlanta was owning the first half, like usual. And then Nick Foles comes back, and under pressure, he made a beautiful TD throw to, I think, Miller. But the guy looks good, but is it week to week? He's just so shaky and so unreliable. So their QB situation is, I would think, one of the worst in the NFL right now, besides the Denver Broncos, just because their starter got hurt. Overall, I would be very nervous and but also feel very happy to be 3-0 as a Chicago Bears fan, because this offense is not that good, but that defense is still pretty good.
Yeah, looked not too bad to start the year at 3-0. So like I said, we'll see coming up next week. My backup of the week, I did want to highlight, and we talked about last week when we were talking about injuries. Christian McCaffrey going down in the Panthers game. I know Hunter was torn up about that one, his first overall pick. But Mike Davis stepping in, who I managed to take on the waivers, looked very good in filling in for McCaffrey this week. Not necessarily filling McCaffrey's shoes, but not looking too bad at it. Only 13 carries for 46 yards. So 3.5 yards per carry, not looking great, but 8 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown, filling that McCaffrey role. And eight receptions that's wide receiver numbers. That's a lot of targets coming from Teddy Bridgewater, who hasn't looked amazing. They won that game 21-16 against the Chargers defense. So Mike Davis, if he's not already picked up in your league, might be a good look for the next few weeks if you're having running back trouble. I know he was for me.
I mean, he had a really good performance once McCaffrey went out last week. So just for him to have a back-to-back week like this is really encouraging. He touched the ball more than any other player on that offense. So as far as fantasy goes, you need to be grabbing this guy and starting this guy. With 13 attempts in the run game, then he also had the most targets at 9 and had the most catches with 8 with a TD. Really nice for his fantasy production. And overall, he's just playing pretty well. So really nice to see from him. And Carolina kind of fill the void the best they can without McCaffrey, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really interesting to see Davis, who even in college was never really like a super big receiving running back, like stepping in and elevating his game to being like a good enough receiver out of the backfield. So I don't know. It's just cool to see.
Yeah. Out of South Carolina, 2015. He's a small guy, 5'9", but an excellent game for him. Cool to see. I would love for everyone, like I said earlier, to vote on our Twitter. Backup of the week, we got Nick Mullins, Nick Foles, and the Carolina Panthers, Mike Davis. Something that I did want to highlight real quick before we move into closing this down. Jeremy Chinn got the start at the Carolina Panthers this week. I talked about him in, I think it was that same day 2, day 3 players episode out of Southern Illinois. Very excited for you, Jeremy Chinn. Also had a rushing attempt in a rushing yard, so thought that was interesting. So there you go.
Go Jeremy
Anyways.
Chin.
Jeremy Chin, he's an enigma. I don't know I don't know what to think about him, but we've had a good year with gyms this year so far. Logan Wilson looks good. Jeremy Chin, James Robinson. So,
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow, yeah, he was totally like a day 2, day 3 gym.
Our
yeah.
boy Shea Patterson though.
Shea Patterson, did he get cut?
I think he delivered me pizza last week.
Yo, I think I saw him out doing Uber Eats. Like, I'm pretty sure. I actually don't even know what Shea Patterson is up to.
I want to say he's on Kansas City's practice squad, but I don't think that's right.
I think they cut him from the practice squad. Could be wrong.
Okay.
If
Shea Patterson worked out for the Texans this week.
Sounds like Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, they worked out Shea Patterson and they worked out Kelly Bryant. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what the Texans are cooking up this week. Maybe they're gonna give it a Taysom Hill situation in Houston, but it's Shea Patterson.
Gosh.
I'd love to see it.
I want to get Shea Patterson on this show so badly.
Just so we can shit on him. All we do is talk shit about Shea Patterson. We have not said anything nice about Shea Patterson yet.
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure. We'll have to. I'll at least hit his Twitter DMs. Shea, if you're listening, I'm gonna slide in. So just look out for my message. Well, it's been a hell of a show, boys. Was a delight wrapping up week 3 with you as always. Our 3rd episode of the season. It's gone by pretty quickly, actually, which is pretty insane. But if you got anything to say it now or forever hold your peace. And we're going to wrap this baby up.
I'll start with a good old thanks for listening and Fire Dan Quinn. On to you, Hunter.
I'm also going to go with a strong Fire Dan Quinn. And then secondly, follow us at the Backups Cast on Twitter and follow all of us individually. We're fun. We're cool. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah. I guess I'll make it 3. I'll feel left out if I don't. So Fire Dan Quinn.
Thank you.
And yes, you can follow us on Twitter as well as subscribe to our YouTube. All of our videos will be on there so you can see our beautiful faces while you listen to us spout random shit about NFL football from our mouths. And you can also follow us on Podbean where our podcasts are hosted. So thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.